Easily the most anticipated and potentially concerning aspect of Black Ops 7 Zombies in the run-up to release was the reintroduction of the classic Zombies protagonists. We were given some details to expect them to still feel fresh, but given the shaky nature of Black Ops 6's narrative, many people, myself included, were fearing the worst. However, thankfully, the returning characters are already shaping up to be fantastic, with excellent dialogue that's not only funny, but actually helps to not only add flavour to the world of the Dark Aether, but also to the timelines where these characters originally came from. We made some predictions shortly before the release about what these worlds might be like, and I think the theories mostly hold up. Though some very surprising details have also been shared that I never saw coming. Now, Treyarch have already said that they will explain why the characters are back, and that'll be explored in the future. So far, there's no hints, no indications really at all from this map, at least as far as I'm aware. You can let me know if you've noticed anything in the comment section. Before we dive straight into what we have now learned though, here's a refresher of what we knew initially. The returning versions of the characters were from different timelines, different realities. Though whether or not that's pre-tagged a totem with the multiverse, or they have made a big narrative retcon and are now saying that there still is one, or the Sentinel artifact in the Reckoning ending made one, we're not so sure. But these worlds were totally separate, and it appears that none of these characters ever met any of the others in their original world.
I am beginning to surmise we are from different times. Perhaps different realities. Definitely different gene pools.
Nikolai is a Soviet tank operator from the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in the 1980s. Takeo is a Ronin, a masterclass samurai from 1600s Japan. Dempsey is now from the 1960s, having been pulled from Vietnam. Richtofen is, as always, a genius. This time though, he is the hero of the Reich in a world where the Axis powers defeated the Allies from 1945. From the brief description, we speculated a lot about just what could have happened to these characters to bring them to the Dark Aether, but we didn't know why this was. In Ashes of the Damned, during the mid-game cutscene however, the entity tells us that each of our playable characters has been touched by a great power, that the Warden has sensed that he might harvest their spiritus, their vital essence or soul, for reasons unknown. For Requiem, the power that left a mark on their spiritus was the Sentinel artifact, but for the other characters, the field is rife for speculation. Currently, as the amount we know about each character is different due to in-game quotes having varying levels of relevance, we'll go from who we know the least about currently to who we know the most about, starting with Nikolai is by far the character whose newest incarnation we know the least about, in large part because at the moment it appears as if his world is the same. From what we do know, this Nikolai was born in Holmogorny in the USSR, a small village to the north of St. Petersburg. Given his current age, he was likely too young to have fought in the Second World War, though may have lived through some of it as a child. We can see that he takes great pride in his country, mocking Richtofen's side for losing the war, seemingly oblivious to the fact that in Richtofen's world, the opposite was true. Come the 1980s, the Soviet Union found itself embroiled in the infamous invasion and occupation of Afghanistan, a conflict widely regarded as the Soviet Union's equivalent of Vietnam. It was a long conflict, dragging on for a decade, and by the end, Russia's ultimate fate was simply to leave.
Never thought I would miss Afghanistan this much. At least it was sunny.
This Nikolai is a tank operator from 1984. The invasion would carry on for several years. However, by this point, Nikolai indicates that he has already lost many friends, and so at the moment is unwilling to consider any of his current new commanders anything other than just that, comrades. He does seem to find some comfort when he discovers that Weaver is also Russian, initially unable to tell due to his Americanized accent, but the two are able to swap stories about their homeland.
Been a while since I've met a Tavarish from the old country.
Oh, you are Russian. Your accent is... Nikolai did not realize. Nikolai is from Holmogorny. Your people are from where in motherland?
Near Smolensk. But my family fled to the US shit. I don't know. What I wouldn't give for a bowl of my mother's borscht and a hot shower.
Nikolai saw something planted in ground at farm. Maybe beets, maybe heads. Perhaps better to not know.
Nikolai's relationship with Russia is complex though. He loves his country deeply, but self-admittedly has no love for the Communist Party at the time. This was echoed by much of Russia, though not openly at the time due to rampant corruption in the upper echelons of the party, as well as at the very war that Nikolai was involved in, which was deeply unpopular. He is a proud Russian, but not necessarily a proud Marxist-Leninist.
Well, Ivan, never thought I'd share a foxhole with a commie, but here we are.
Call me Nikolai. I may be patriot, but I have no love for party. I do not expect you to understand.
In an interesting twist, it seems that this Nikolai's beloved tank is much like his wives in his previous incarnations, with him expressing his love for one another, but forgetting exactly what number she was.
Now I am homesick. Tessie reminds Nikolai of his poor third tank. I hope someone is keeping her warm.
This is, admittedly, not as much as the other characters, but given what has already been set up for them, I'm extremely confident the Treyarch are planning something big for Nikolai. After all, it was his other self who is solely responsible for the current situation they find themselves in, through his grand scheme to break the cycle, which has, arguably, failed. Perhaps if he learns of this, he will be compelled to put things right. Another thing to note about Nikolai's universe is it does seem like the Zarya Cosmodrome, the multiplayer map launch remake, the essentially alternative version of Ascension, is actually from Nikolai's timeline. As he says, so rumors that Zarya Cosmodrome vanished were true, meaning that it was pulled into the dark ether before Nikolai was, and he was aware of it. We don't know much about this dimension, but potentially there was minimal 115 in this universe considering the fact that the Ascension project struggled to launch the rocket here, and had no Thundergun or Gersh devices. But there's really little to go on between the connection between this alternative Ascension and Nikolai just yet. We'll probably find out more in the future. As we predicted in the pre-launch video, Takeo is a Ronin, a samurai whose master has died and has not found a new master. At this period in history, this was seen as deeply dishonorable. For Takeo, who in the past was always categorized as the last upholder of the dying samurai spirit, this is quite the reversal. In that video, we predicted that, because of the date given being in the last year of Japan's Warring States period, Takeo was a samurai in service to one of the final clans to rebel against the new order sweeping the country. This very well could still hold true. However, currently, it seems there is little to no knowledge about who the Masaki clan swore its allegiance to. Interestingly, however, Takeo speaks of his work as a Ronin somewhat lightly. This may simply be idle chatter to explain to his new allies that he is proficient in combat. But perhaps it indicates that unlike his past selves, who clung to the idea of a samurai as it appeared in the legends, as they were far too modern to actually uphold it, this Takeo understands what it actually means to have honor in that world, and that perhaps he believes the rigid methods of the samurai code are not the honor he believes in. There is more to this Takeo than simply a redo of his samurai aspect though. He is very much haunted, perhaps by guilt like the other characters, but very literally too. When playing as Takeo, you may hear a strange, extremely distorted voice speak to him. We can't understand this, but Takeo clearly can, with him telling it to not bother him.
Now is not the time. If I wish to know your opinion, I will ask.
In other quotes, after going down, he will say, "I will not fail. She must be sated."
I will not fail. She must be sated.
In yet more, he makes reference to female yokai, a Japanese term for a demon, who siphons energy much like the Warden.
In my land, there are yokai who consume your ki, but they are usually female.
While it is definitely speculative, some have taken this to mean that Syraxis the Shadow from Vanguard Zombies is at play within Takeo's mind. If you are familiar with that game's lore, Syraxis of course had a direct connection to Japan, and so this would make sense. The only issue here is that Takeo is very clearly not in possession of the Dragon of Syraxis artifact. It could still be her, and there are elements we don't yet understand, but currently I'm inclined to suspect it's some new force entirely, nowhere near on the level of a Dark Ether entity or a Shadowsmith, but definitely powerful and not to be underestimated. But let me know, do you think it could potentially be Syraxis? After Tag the Toten and when the mystery box and the other artifacts got thrown in to the Dark Aether, she made contact with the real world during the Edo period in Japan. But she specifically used her artifact to contact the locals who built a shrine and worshipped her on the swampy Okinawan island we know as Shinonuma. But after Zykov was defeated, was her essence, her soul, potentially freed? And could she be speaking to Takeo? Some people have been saying, well, Takeo could have been from the new universe and he was actually who Syraxis was speaking with all along in the lore we learned about in Vanguard. But I really don't think that's the case because, like I said, these are probably from alternative dimensions, not the current one, but it's interesting to note nevertheless. Even back in the Aether storyline, Takeo had the gift of hearing his ancestors and many other spirits in his thoughts and dreams. Richtofen even once encouraging him to listen to them. He was actually one of the very first ones to begin hearing the Shadow Man as well, with quotes on the giants from within the Summoning Key, the first teaser that he was going to return come Revelations. It seems that this new Takeo is no exception. Now, before we jump into arguably the two most important characters in terms of how much information they've gotten so far, Richtofen and Dempsey, I first have an amazing game to share with you before we jump back in, so stay tuned. 2 minutes, that's all I'm asking for. I just got hired by a Better World company, a new game out now on Steam, and they are desperately recruiting new blood, meaning you. No interview, no references, just a tolerance for paradoxes and light war crimes. They hand you, the computer, yes, capital letters, the most overpowered time machine ever coded. One click and you are body slamming through history. Jurassic Park, Ancient Greece, the Space Race, the French Renaissance, all in seconds. Your actual job, rewrite everything. Meddle with major events from myths to modern politics. Assignment inbound. Stop JFK getting shot. Wait, I misinterpreted. Accidentally delivered the nuke to Gandhi instead. World peace via glowing ash. HR gave me 81%. Applied to email saying creative and access to the floor 3. Next time, improve the dinosaurs. So I introduced capitalism. Velociraptors now wear ties, run hedge funds, and are on strike for dental practices. My virtual assistant, Globos, imagined a sarcastic orb that tells dad jokes during genocide. Just when, congrats, you are invited to the Jurassic Recession. Every decision is dark, witty, and teeters right on the edge of total chaos. Sent humanity to Mars instead of the moon? Sure. Turn Napoleon into a viral pastry chef? Already trending. Accidentally trigger early apocalypse? No problem. Restart the mission. Because employee empowerment means unlimited redos until the timeline stops crying. You climb the corporate ladder by stacking employee scores. High enough and you unlock the upper floors of the creepiest retro-futuristic office ever designed. Zero plants, zero football, zero mercy. Just pure, sterile excellence and the gentle hum of existential dread. Hashtag no room for mistakes Globos is your only co-worker. She answers questions, cracks jokes, and quietly judges your life choices. One former employee left this review. Working at a better world means being both a witness to and an actor in history. They vanish shortly after. A Better World is out right now on PC and Mac. Available for $11.99. But 30% off until November 27th. So basically, $8 to run a civilization in the funniest way possible. Fully screen reader compatible from the first launch. Toggle anytime on or off in the settings. So if this game sounds like an absolute blast, it's so unique, check it out via the link in the description. Join the company, let's make the past regret existing. Globos just assigned me, fix 2025. Wish me luck, or don't. HR prefers plausible deniability. Now let's jump into the story of Dempsey. Tank Dempsey is no longer the Marine veteran of both world wars, but now instead, a current combatant in the United States' conflict in Vietnam. There's much to discuss there, but before we even get to that, we've learned about Dempsey's civilian life. Before shipping off to the jungles of Southeast Asia, Tank Dempsey was a native of the West Virginian town of Liberty Falls, one that Zombies players of course know very well from Black Ops 6. Here, he joined up with the town's legendary biker group, the Steel Mountain Riders, the same group that in the main world would save Crystal Miller, and are where the origins of the Bloodburner bike come from. I'll play some quotes from him about his history now.
Thought I was back in Liberty Falls for a hot minute. Ugh, fucking carrot juice. My Steel Mountain brothers would kick my ass. I heard stories about Pa Van Dorn, and I ain't sorry.
So yes, Dempsey also does mention that he knows of the Vandorns, which kind of implies that Vandorn fan may also be from Liberty Falls, which is an interesting prospect nevertheless. Furthermore, in the Liberty Falls that we find in Black Ops 6, we do find the grave of a Ruth Dempsey. It was speculated at the time that this was perhaps the grave of a relative. And now, given these revelations, it seems to very much be the case. Though we've got to also keep in mind that as far as we know, these characters don't exist in the dimension that we have experienced in the Dark Aether story so far, and where the rest of the characters are from. Meaning that this is probably an alternative Liberty Falls where he is from, and potentially in the timeline, Ruth may have just died before she was able to continue the bloodline that would lead to Tank. Now, I'm not sure if Treyarch actually originally intended for this to be a Dempsey teaser, because Dempsey is a common name in the area, but fans have been speculating about it for a while, and Treyarch might have just ran with it. Anyways, once arriving in Vietnam, Dempsey was eventually selected for a very special mission. We can assume this was likely due to his exponential prowess as a soldier. This mission, however, would perhaps be the last time he would be seen, at least in his own eyes, as a hero. Having been informed of the mission, Dempsey was met by CIA officer Gregory Weaver from the office of Requiem. Being a squad of men, he made his way into the jungle in search of an ancient temple housing some sort of evil, as well as undead. With no choice, Strauss bound a disciple to Dempsey by force, and while his actions saved lives and earned him a medal, he was mentally scarred by the events. He would go AWOL from his post following this, his absence causing some of his soldiers to die, further deepening the trauma and guilt. From here, we can't be sure how exactly Dempsey made his way into the Dark Aether, but it surely has something to do with the power he encountered in that temple. What is exceptionally interesting though is the introduction of another Office of Requiem, and in the 1960s no less. Several things in the timeline are clearly far different to the others we know, and make it clear that it's not only Richtofen's world that's different. So let's discuss what is new here. Firstly, for Requiem to exist, we need a knowledgeable Richtofen. In Black Ops Cold War, we had just that in the form of Eddie, and we see the exact moment that Requiem is founded. It is entirely because of Richtofen. Now, he was not only a native of that world, in fact, both him and Sam were total anomalies, arriving in 1954 with no real rhyme or reason for being there. The Berlin orphanage approximates Eddie to be around 8 years old, which means even if he was born in that world, he would have been born in 1946. By 1968, when Dempsey was taken from the Dark Aether, a Richtofen of this age would only be 22, likely nowhere near experienced enough in his career to make anything like the Office of Requiem. But again, as I've said, Richtofen being this young at this point is a total anomaly. Birth dates could possibly change in the old Aether multiverse, but they always appear to be somewhat similar, at least as far as we've seen so far. Ultimis Richtofen was middle-aged by 1945. The new Richtofen we see in Black Ops 7 is perhaps a bit younger, but not that far off. My point here is that, outside of the main dimension where we began the Dark Aether storyline, the post-Tagdato New World, where there was meant to be no Richtofen, every Richtofen is an adult in the aftermath of World War II. Now, of course, we've only seen limited worlds, so it's possible other ones are radically different. I mean, we hear stuff from Monty, for example, talking about a universe where everyone just has one arm. But I think it's easier for them to stick to a general theme of the general storyline and just sort of distort things a little bit, just to keep things a bit more understandable. Now, what if this is a world with no MPD? A world where the Axis lost the war like our own, but one where Richtofen's genius was still at large. Well, we already know in the Aether's main dimension, he cut deals with both the Americans and the Soviets, but sent those he trusted to America as they would be kinder to the scientists, mirroring the real-life Operation Paperclip. In Dempsey's world, I believe the Richtofen there, an adult during World War II, cut a deal with the US and brought his vast dimensional knowledge there, with Dempsey being born later. Cornelius Pennell would never found Broken Arrow, and so Richtofen's knowledge of advanced science would be the single most invaluable weapon to the United States, and his new office to pursue this field would be called the Office of Requiem. Of course, that's just speculation. Maybe Richtofen has no ties to this alternative version of Requiem, and I find it so interesting that they're doing alternative timelines and mixing it in with alternative versions of the new dimension that we are just now learning about, because I was thinking when they were going to be telling alternative dimensions that they would just tie in things with the old Aether, but it seems like they're doing a mix of both, and it's very interesting because you would have thought Requiem would only exist in the new timeline and not alternative versions, just given the nature of how it came to be, being so specific to the new timeline with Eddie coming through as a child out of nowhere, the tragedy with his family burning, and then him setting up Requiem to eventually lead to revenge imagine getting them back. Oskar Strauss, another scientist acquired in Paperclip, would logically be one of Richtofen's first choices in this world, with the 935's expertise largely following Richtofen to the United States. The Ascension Group would essentially be ruined before they ever had a chance to begin, meaning the CIA would never have to bother implanting deep cover agents into their ranks, and as a result, allow them to serve Requiem. One watch agent would be none other than Grigori Weaver. In this world, entirely thanks to Richtofen, keeping his other eye totally unaware of what might have been. Yes, this is non-eye patch Weaver, an absolute menace to society. I wonder if in this world, Kravchenko instead is missing an eye. Is there a peck of this world that actually stabs his eye? So many questions. It's possible that through the research of this alternative Requiem, Richtofen was made aware of Dempsey, and so had Weaver seek him out. Of course, all of this is additional speculation, but I will choose to still take this as headcanon for now, because it just makes so much sense and adds so much richness to the world. Dempsey's origins for how he ended up in the Dark Aether are interesting. Richtofen was being awarded the Ritterkreuz medal from the Nazis for being a war hero, whilst Dempsey was sat on the toilet. I'll play that quote now.
1 minute I am stepping up to receive the Ritterkreuz medal. The next I am in this hellhole, snatched away. Denied the honor of a lifetime.
Whatever. I was sitting on a crapper when it happened to me. Ain't seen a shred of toilet paper since.
We have learned a significant amount about Richtofen's world from his quotes. Unlike Ultimis Richtofen, whose affiliation with the Nazi party was entirely unwanted, this Richtofen appears to be a true believer, if only because here, he believes it is the best way to forward his own designs. He has so many quotes in the game talking about eugenics and genes, superior genes and all this nonsense. It's always a wonder how someone can be a genius at science, but then let their illogical emotions dictate their own beliefs. Although he seems more sane than his Ultimus self, yet more sadistic too, which is a lethal combination. In terms of his world, much of what we predicted was correct, but there are a few interesting twists. We already know that the Axis powers won the war in his world, but we didn't know to what extent. Now we know it appears to be full-on world domination. Russia is within the territory of the Reich, and assuming Treyarch are following the pattern of popular series like Man in the High Castle, we can assume that America were made to capitulate as well through the use of extreme weapons of mass destruction. This would make sense given the rumoured Nazi New York map. Whether or not it's been cut could still be a part of his backstory. But just how would it even be possible for them to win? In our world, there were systematic failures in the Nazi command that prevented them from succeeding. Hitler's infamous desire to invade Russia during the winter is largely cited as a massive blunder, and ultimately, even if he had waited, a two-front war, east and west, is near impossible for any nation. The only way they could have won is with superior technology and a mad genius at its head. That's precisely where Richtofen comes in. He says himself in Ashes of the Damned that he is the mind of a generation.
Finest mind of my generation, and I am forced to rely on my base instincts.
If we compare him to Ultimus Richtofen, or really any other incarnation, this is very likely true. Even Nikolai, who hates fascism with all of his heart, asks Richtofen if he has a plan to defeat the Warden, as he knows that Richtofen isn't stupid and can help them out. At least not stupid in some ways. With racism and prejudice, well, that's another story. Even with that bright mind though, it wouldn't be enough on its own. Germany arguably had some of its brightest scientists in the world, which was why both in our storyline and in real life, the US and the Soviets scrambled to secure as many possible in the post-war years. So what was unique? Element 115. When turning a generator on in Ashes of the Damned, Richtofen can comment on it, saying that it is Element 115, and that it is more than worth its weight in gold. Now, Gray also comments on them and says it's Ethereum, which is a massive conversation that needs a video of its own. For now though, the important fact is that Richtofen knows of Element 115. This has two main consequences. A, it seems to confirm that all of these worlds are indeed from the pre-Tag-the-Totem multiverse, as all 115 was banished to the Dark Aether and should not exist in the real world unless it started spewing once more like we see in Modern Warfare Zombies. But that could very well be because of the events that that we're about to see play out in Black Ops 7. B. Richtofen made heavy use of 115 in his conquest of the world. There are further implications that element 115 may be simply a form of Ethereum, that being its pure form. Then what else does Ethereum contain? It's weird that we never saw the purple Ethereum crystals until the Dark Aether saga though, although purple 115 has showed up in isolated instances like Shinonuma. I guess it's been back all along. I'll talk more about this in the future. There is a lot of worry that this may undo the Tag to Toten ending, since the point was banishing 115 and the multiverse, but now 115 is back, which the crew were intrinsically bonded to with the elemental shard. The multiverse may be on the precipice too, and the original crew are back. What was the point? The cycle continues. As we accurately speculated in the previous video, Richtofen used element 115 to power a new arms revolution. However, Richtofen's lack of knowledge about where he is or the zombies that are attacking is interesting. He has of course lost some of his memories, as all of the crew are suffering memory distortions and amnesia due to their souls being taken. They will regain them like Dempsey and Maya have in the future. I do wonder though, on Astra Malarum, now they have their memories back, will Dempsey give us more information about his past? But I'm starting to wonder if 115 was actually rare in his dimension, perhaps rarer than even the original world of the Aether storyline. And so, instead of teleportation technology or traditional weapons technology, it was used for different purposes. This Richtofen is dedicated to the Reich. Unlike his Ultimis self, Ludwig Maxis, if he exists in this world, would not have upset Richtofen with the revelation that he had made a deal with the Reichstag. The two would have been on the same page, meaning that even if 935 had a less 115, he did say it was far more valuable than gold after all. 935 would work as an incredibly efficient organization with one clear goal, not to improve the human condition, but to simply just win the war. We actually have some more evidence of this. We'd previously speculated that the jump pads were evidence of more advanced 935 technology as they have the insignia, but in fact, it's evidence of the opposite. When Richtofen uses one, he literally says,
935? How?
Which translated to English is simply 935. How? It shocks him that there is 935 technology there that he doesn't know of, asking how. Clearly, this is a very different 935 to the one he knows, from an alternative timeline to the one he is from. Yet, more evidence of this, more grounded organization for him is the fact that he has to figure out that they are from alternative realities. Being a genius, he does recognize this quickly, but the important fact is that he is having to learn of this on the fly. It's totally new to him, which is quite different from what we assumed pre-launch. Finally, we also learn that Richtofen was indeed a genuine hero of the Reich, or rather, he almost was. According to him, he was about to go and shake Hitler's hand and receive the Knight's Cross, the highest honor in all of Germany at the time, when he was then pulled into the Dark Aether. We have to wonder though, just what on earth was the reason for him being pulled in? In isolation, Richtofen wonders if the Warden knows of his sins, but doesn't elaborate on what these are.
Is it possible he knows of my sins?
Given this Richtofen's rank and alignment with the Nazis, his sins are surely numerous. So what on earth has he done to have him actually worried? The most alarming thing though, so far it seems like this Eddie hasn't lied. That would immediately make all of us very, very scared. What did he do to win the war? Thanks for watching this video. Let me know below what you think of these new characters and if I have missed any details about them in the comments below. Thank you for watching and I'll see you with plenty more content to come. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for latest and greatest Call of Duty news information. So anyways, thank you for watching and bye. To conclude this video, I want to shout out the fact that I finally decided to make a Patreon and Cameo account, both of which will be linked below if you want to help support the channel. On Patreon, you can sign up for the lowest tier of just $1.50 a month to get exclusive access for my Discord, where we can discuss zombies lore, trivia, or whatever you desire. A place where you lot, my community, can better connect. Your names will also appear at the end of videos thanking you. For $5.50 a month, you get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive monthly Q&As. And for $16.50 a month, you again get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive lore videos, such as unpacking niche parts of the Treyarch documents I've been breaking down on my channel that don't as much suit a main channel video. For the highest tier, only for those with the ability to and who really want to help out the channel, you get special bonuses I've yet to determine and verbal shoutouts at the end of every video. Over on Cameo, I can do funny videos reading lines from zombies, memes like "How do we tell birthday wishes for friends or family, or whatever else you desire, practically anything. Of course, none of this is necessary, just watching and enjoying the videos helps me immensely and I greatly appreciate it. However, I think it's about time I start setting up additional revenue streams because Zombies' popularity is tumultuous and always goes through ups and downs. As I'm sure you've lately seen on the channel, viewership is down a lot. We go through big highs when new games release, but then during these drought periods, I need more income stability so I don't have to worry as much about it and I can focus more on improving the quality of the content. My highest quality videos are not always the ones that best please YouTube algorithms, so instead, this way I can produce my best work knowing I don't have to think as much about how well the content's going to perform. So if you'd like to support me on Patreon for exclusive content or would like a simple Cameo message, you can do so to further support me via the links below, but only if you can afford it and you actually want to help me. Don't feel like you are forced to, don't worry, I'll survive. It would just help relieve some of the pressure during inconsistent periods on the channel so I don't have to solely rely on AdSense revenue and still maintain the sheer quantity and quality of content that I put out. Obviously I pump out literally a boatload of content and some of these are absolutely crazy projects over hour-long videos, so it's a lot on my plate, especially when these videos don't perform particularly well. And I've not been doing many sponsorships lately to help supplement revenue either, so it would greatly help. Thank you for any generous person once again who does kindly support the channel. It means the absolute world and will really help keep this boat afloat.